Good afternoon, Gama Global Philippines. Magandang araw po sa inyong lahat. This is your flight crew, EJ Viloria, your Gamafy chair and host for today. I'm requesting everyone to please fasten your seatbelts because today we are taking off on the way to a meaningful journey. Welcome everyone to Gamafy Revibe 2022. The question I have for everyone right now is, are you ready to soar and go farther today? I'm sure you are. This event is brought to you by Gamma Global Philippines, still to enrich you, our members, with valuable knowledge and push for holistic growth and success. Today, your airline seats are reserved for two talks with our wonderful speakers who will be tackling crucial matters, especially during this time. In our first talk, we will learn about how leaders in the industry can take advantage of the coming trends and changes that are about to happen in our consumers' minds and lives. Now, it's time to meet our speakers. Our speakers are a power couple who are both best-selling authors, sought-after speakers, and entrepreneurs. One is a pioneer angelpreneur mentor for Go Negosyo and speaks on the success mindset of entrepreneurs. Among his many awards and recognitions, in and out of the country is being one of the top 10 entrepreneurs in 2006 and was voted most inspiring entrepreneur of Microsoft and Entrepreneur magazine. His other half, on the other hand, is a Miss Universe first runner-up who captivated millions around the world after winning the first runner-up title at the Miss Universe pageant in 1999, an award-winning host and an actress. To talk about post-pandemic leadership mindset, let's welcome Mr. Ardy Roberto and Miss Miriam Quiambao-Roberto.
Thank you, EJ. Kamusta kayo lahat?
Good afternoon, Gamma team. We're so excited to be here and address you all this afternoon. Kamusta naman kayo nitong nakaraang elections? Buhay pa ba?
Nakabawi na ba kayo?
Oo nga. Pwede bang mag-poll? Mag-poll tayong lahat dun sa 43 participants na naandito sa ating Zoom chat. Tungkol sa naging sa binoto ninyo. Nanalo ba siya o hindi? O yan, ganito ha.
Meron poll.
Ayan, did your presidential candidate win? Yes or no? Type in your answer now. Diba?
Another
yes
way
or
to
no
put
lang
it,
yan.
nagluluksa ka ba o hindi?
Parang wala sumasagot. May sumasagot ba?
Nagluluksa kami.
Non-partisan naman tayo dito, di ba? Siyempre, lahat nire-respeto ko anong binoto. Pero gusto lang namin makilala kung ang audience namin, kung nasaan kayo ngayon.
Yes daw. Okay. Well, if you open the poll, you don't have to answer from the chat box. All you have to do is press yes or no. Ayan.
Yan. Press lang yes or no.
Yan. Okay? Meron na raw results.
Yun.
36% said yes.
65% says no. Yun. Di at least alam namin kung
so yung
nasaan
4%
kayo.
hindi bumoto. Ayan.
Yun.
So majority, no. Okay, 36%. Ayan. So maraming kasama si Pure tsaka si Pauline na nagluluksa.
Oo, pero mas marami ang nagse-celebrate, di ba? Well,
hindi. Mas no nga eh.
No, nanalo.
No,
mas
65%.
maraming nagluluksa. Oo
at
nga.
36% lang, yes. Nanalo.
Well, we feel for you. Actually, lahat naman ng emotions welcome dito, no? Kasi there's nothing bad about feeling all those emotions. We just have to allow them to take its course, diba? I think that's the best way to approach any kind of emotion, especially mga less than happy, yung mga non-happy emotions gaya ng grief, diba? Okay lang yan. But it's acceptable and also understandable because after all, we are going through this let's say a transition, di ba? Itong tema natin ngayon para sa ating Gamafy is we are on a journey. We're taking off on a flight. Pero gaya ng kahit anong flight, may mga uncertainties, di ba? Minsan may mga may bagyong darating, tapos merong mga turbulations, di ba? Hindi ka ngayon sigurado makaka-landing ka ba? O lalanding ba sa airport, lalanding ba sa tubig, o kung saan bundok, hindi natin alam. So in other words, maraming mga uncertainties ngayon, lalo na katatapos lang ng pandemic. Actually, hindi pa natin sure kung tapos pa nga ba ang pandemic o nandito lang tayo in between two versions of the coronavirus. Diba?
Kasi marami nagsiksikan sa polling booths.
Oo
diba?
nga.
So, baka...
Tapos sa bandang US, meron pa ni bagong strain na naman ng diba, ng Omicron. So, hindi natin alam kung may darating ba sa atin. Magla-lockdown na naman ba? Ang daming uncertainties. Then, on top of that, meron pa tayong election. There's going to be a transition of leadership, especially in our country. Ang dami-dami nating uncertainties. Plus, since majority ang no, diba? Hindi pa natin alam kung nanalo nga ba talaga si Bongbong kasi nagbibilang pa sila sa PPCRV. So, hanggang ngayon, we are still in limbo between two administrations. Maraming nag-concede, pero hindi pa rin natin alam. Tapos kung sakali,
yung
nanalo man...
si Leody nag-concede.
Nag-concede na.
Si Leody.
Oo. Si Manny Pacquiao din, nag-concede na. Diba? So,
Si Ping Lacson. No?
Yeah. So itutuloy ko lang yung aking aking spiel. So as I mentioned, we are in transition and we are still very uncertain. In fact, even in the next 6 years, let's say na proklama kung sinong nanalo sa Pilipinas dahil post-pandemic tayo ngayon, yung magiging leader ng bansa natin, kaharapin niya talaga is ang daming problema. So yun na naman yung uncertainty on our part bilang bayan, 'di ba? Makakayanan ba niyang i-handle na ito? Makakayanan ba niyang i-take tayo dun sa next level na sana pataas hindi pa baba? Ang dami talagang uncertainties. Pero gaya ng prayer natin kanina, 'di ba? Ang ganda ng ending kung sino mang nagsulat ng prayer, thank you kasi na-appreciate ko yung ending ng prayer niya. Sabi niyo, help us to lead with love. And may love reign in all our hearts and even amidst us right now as we discuss these transitions and what to do on how to be a leader post-pandemic. Now, I won't take this long anymore because my husband here prepared a presentation for you on how you can do this as leaders in your own right. So, without further ado, Ardy, without further ado, Ardy, you can take the floor.
Thank you. Yeah, walang kiss. Lead with love
Sila nga. Ngayon o mas maganda mamaya?
Okay.
Mas torrid na. Pang-asawa, mag-asawa naman kami, di ba?
Okay.
Okay, go.
So thank you for putting the talk into context, Miriam, and you're right. We are in transition. But you know what? Whoever, kung sino man ang binoto, everyone is now in the same boat kasi sa ating journey we're in flight Pilipinas, di ba? So as leaders, what kind of mindset do we need to have? And I'm a big believer in mindset, as mentioned earlier in the introduction. I am a volunteer angelpreneur for Go Negosyo, and the first session that they put out to the public for those mentees attending is always the mindset, the proper mindset. Kasi we need to master ourselves first. So nandun yung mindset shift, what kind of success mindsets do we need to have. And one of the most popular talks that I'm always asked to deliver is ito nga, how to lead in transitions. Yeah, so tamang-tama kasi hindi lang tayo quote-unquote post-pandemic pero post-election pa. Diba? Yan. So meron akong hindi lang presentation, I want this to become a discussion and also give time for our second session, si Phil and Gian from Havas Media will present some really mind-blowing or really eye-opening results from a worldwide survey that they did. And this will also help you in your transition. All of you are leaders, all of you are independent managers, owners of businesses. You have, so this I think will help you. Okay.
All right.
So I'd like to start by
Okay.
showing, okay.
I'll excuse myself because
Yes.
there will be a presentation here. So I'll see you later.
Yes. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Miriam. And so I want to present to you first the model that is called the William Bridges Transition Model. Okay. Yan. So papalakihin ko to. Yan. Ito yung Bridges Transition Model. Um, Nung una, pinipresent ko to sa mga government agencies, corporations, because they wanted people to be able to transition from the old normal to the new normal. So ito, meron tayong post-pandemic. How do we transition from the pandemic, post-pandemic, and also from the election? Di ba? We're looking at the 3 stages, which is endings, okay, neutral zone, and new beginnings. Okay? So sa ending of a new normal, nandun ang anger, denial, fear, shock, and even sadness. If you look at the leftmost zone, and the middle zone, you're looking at the neutral zone. Okay? Meron pa rin confusion, disorientation, frustration, skepticism, and even apathy. Okay? But the trick is to get out of that and go into the mindset, okay, you accept it, there's going to be a new beginning, so let's start to get committed to it. Let's spend energy on it, and let's get excited. Yeah. Okay. So, but as a leader, how do you transition into that? It's easier said than done, right? So, I like to quote my favorite positive psychologist. He's called the father of positive psychology, and his name is William James. And he said, the greatest weapon against stress, if you are there and you're stressed, is our ability to choose one thought over another. And mind you, transitions is mostly psychological. Okay? It's mostly mindset. Okay? Siya rin ang nagsabi, si William James din nagsabi na the greatest revolution of our generation is the discovery that human beings, by changing the inner attitudes of their minds, can change the outer aspects of their lives. So in other words, if you change your thoughts, you can actually change your life. And I know that many of you who are in sales can attest to that, being sales leaders, how important that is to keep on energizing and checking on the mindsets of our people, right? So, di ba, so right now, I could say, post-pandemic, marami sa inyo, majority here, are in grief because of the ending of perhaps a hope that your candidate would win. So many are in shock, are in anger. Some are in denial, ayaw tanggapin ang results. And many are fearful, anxious about the future. And marami nagluluksa, they're sad. Okay, so and this is taking place. I think it might you can see it all over, and many are saying that para tong 5 stages of grief, di ba? O itong denial, mababasa. Hindi ko na babasahin yung katumbas niya, di ba? So, ayan, hanggang sa acceptance na mag-abroad na sila sa Australia, di ba? Alam mo mga Pilipino, di ba? Malamim tayo, and we like dealing with our frustration and anger this way. And this is one of the things that I saw also. Ayan. Basahin na lang yan, di ba? Pati ba naman yung pero we should so these are responses, and these are responses in anger and in frustration. People are all over, yung mga, at least those who lost, and I think majority of the people here watching or attending are can identify with this, di ba? So yun po. So how do we go from, how do we let go into the neutral zone and start going to the new beginning? Okay? Ayan. So on top of that, di ba, the election, maraming ang the challenges pa that have been set to us with the pandemic, businesses closing, um, you know, clients losing their financial stability, and on top of that, on top of the financial, today lang the news about how our financial markets, the stock market has dropped. Yesterday was hanggang 3%, billions of pesos have been wiped off. And investors are wait and see. They're all saying, okay, pakita mo muna yung plano mo bago kami mag-invest or not pull out our money. Diba? JP Morgan just put us, the Philippines, on the lowest rung of in ranking in terms of investment grade. Okay, and on top of that, we have to deal also with kasi after this pandemic, we have to deal naman with the psychological and mental aspects of how this has affected our children, right? And we're dealing with that until today. And in fact, that's as an aside, I want to share, and siguro you'll have more insight later when sila Phil and Gian present their findings. But for me as a leader, looking at what the pandemic has been bringing and looking post the challenges financially and mentally, that's the reason why, and this is one of the reasons why Miriam and I decided to move to Boracay. So because our children were experiencing mental health issues. Takot na sila lumabas. They were afraid of people. They were locked in their rooms, locked in the houses. And that really actually moved us to resign from the city life and choose a simpler life, get out of the lockdown life, and look at really our lives in terms of living it to the fullest. So, and I think it was one of the best decisions that Mia and I made. We moved to Boracay last February, and so ito ngayon ang aming pamilya, diba? So this was my response to the pandemic. Now we're talking post-pandemic. My estimate was that this would last a year, so I took out a contract to lease a house until the end of this year. Actually, in-extend pa namin until next year, June. Sabi nga ni Bill Gates, sana nga hindi magkatuloy. Sabi niya, the worst is yet to come down. There's going to be, we haven't seen the worst yet, and the pandemic will still rage on. Hopefully not. But that's why there's so much uncertainty. Right? There's so much volatility in our environment. So my question right now is, as a leader of your family and a leader of your organization or business, what are the top 4 qualities, leadership qualities, mindsets that we need during times of uncertainty and transition? Okay, so I'd like to do a house survey. In fact, what do you think? What do you think people need most from you as a leader during this time of uncertainty, during this time of transition, post-pandemic, post-election? Can I see in the chat box? Okay, can you write down? Nothing. There's no right answer or wrong answer. I'm just asking for your thoughts to share. Yes, Narlene said that we need a leader who is compassionate and understanding. EJ said someone who will give guidance, okay? Assurance, sabi ni Rico. Ayan, maganda. Cynthia says empathy and new direction. I like that. Okay. Strength, sabi ni Pure. Oo. Lalo na sa mga nanghihina ngayon sa resulta. Christine Joy said empathy, support, and motivation. Okay. Encouragement, sabi ni Connie. Yeah, okay. Maria Santos said guidance, support, and motivation. All right. Okay. So as they come in, I based this, I asked this also because I based this on a Gallup poll. Sa Pilipinas kasi we've been in perpetual change and volatility and uncertainty for a long time. And when Gallup did a a poll on Asia-wide, okay, on what they think. They asked the question, what do followers need most from their leaders? Ito po ang lumabas during times of change and uncertainty. Okay? Ayan. So, maganda yung mga sagot nyo, no? Resilience, sabi ni MJ, and understanding and patience. Okay, ito po ang lumabas. Ayan. So, 10,000 people surveyed. These people said that the four things in no particular order that they need from their leaders are these qualities: a leader who has compassion, a leader that they can trust, someone who has integrity, respect, and honesty, someone who can relay hope, okay, guidance, direction, and faith, and will support his people, someone who exudes strength, stability, and excellence, someone who will empower their people. So, nung lumabas yung Gallup poll, and I was speaking a lot on leadership and change, so I coined a model called, kung kanina sabi, di ba, lead with love, ako lead with life, transposing compassion into love, trust into integrity, hope into faith, and support into empowerment. Yeah. So I'll quickly discuss those four qualities with you. And hopefully you'll embrace this also as something that you can actually use as a template for your own leadership journey, whether it's leading your family, your organization, or your business. So looking at the first quality that people look for in a leader, right? They're looking for someone who will actually lead with love. Not only, love in this time of post-pandemic or post-election, loving your work. They will look for a leader who actually believes in what they're doing, who loves the work that they've been assigned to do, okay? And will lead by example. Sabi nga ni Simon Sinek, di ba? Sabi niya, working hard for something we don't care about is called stress. But working hard for something we love is called passion. So how are we doing there? How are you leading as a leader? Are you showing your people that you love what you're doing? Is it something that they can model from you? And as putting on my my Christian mindset, I love what the Bible says about work. It says, whatever you do, work at it with all your heart as working for the Lord and not for men. It is the Lord Christ you're serving. So my mindset is this: whatever work that has been put on my desk, on my lap, in this season of my life, I'm going to love it. So that's the mindset that I have. And the benefit is this: it is a gift. It really is a gift. It's to enjoy your work and accept your lot in life is indeed a gift. And for me, that is one of the essential mindsets that we need to have. And if we don't love the work and the people that we work with, itong mangyayari, especially if you're leading millennials. Sabi ng Forbes, millennials have a people first value. And for them, a successful business takes care of them, the employees, first and foremost. And the reason why a lot of millennials, even before the Great Resignation came about that we are experiencing now globally, the millennials who leave because they're dissatisfied. Why? Because they will leave, an employee will never leave a company. They will leave a leader. Usually, that's the reason for someone to leave their jobs. They don't need the job. They leave mostly the leader. Yan. So ito diba yung Great Resignation nangyari? The two keys to stopping the Great Resignation: flexibility and trust. Yeah. Trust. They trust that a leader, sabi ni John Maxwell, that the leader will touch the heart, will care for the person before they ask for a hand. Right? In other words, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Doesn't that resonate with you? would you rather follow someone who knows so much, who is intellectually superior, but would you rather follow someone who has the heart, who has compassion, who actually has malasakit for you? Diba? There's a case study in my book, The Happy Entrepreneur, where it's actually a work of fiction, but I tell the true story of several entrepreneurs in that book. And in that, kasama dun, uh, kasama dun sa libro na yon ay isang napaka, an entrepreneur that I really, really admire. Okay, sino siya? His name is Dylan Wilk. Okay. And nakakatuwa yung story niya. Sabi niya, uh, he was the ninth richest under 30 years old in the UK. He made hundreds of millions of dollars. Uh, he had, all the trappings of being rich and famous, but he was not fulfilled. And one day, hindi siya makatulog, and he just shouted out and said, "God, why did you make me rich?" In other words, he was looking for meaning in life. He didn't love what he was doing, and he questioned that. So, long story short, he went to the Philippines in his search for meaning and love, and found Gawad Kalinga, and met one of the volunteers who turned out to be the daughter of the founder, Tony Meloto. And lo and behold, he fell in love and married Anna Meloto, and together they formed Human Heart Nature. Yeah, it's Dylan and Anna Meloto. So, ang galing ng company na, it is a company that survived the pandemic, and in fact was so very flexible, trusted in their people. In fact, in this company, they have a no firing policy. Diba? So once you're hired, you are in there for life. And ang ganda na sinasabi ni Dylan, sabi niya, don't be afraid to love your people because love keeps on coming back. Yeah? Sounds very mushy for a corporate and for leadership. But ito sinasabi niya, believing in the poor works. Most of the people that they hire in the companies are from the poor communities. Sabi niya, not giving up on the poor works. Loving the country works. Our business is built on genuine caring, and it works. And so for me, that's a story. And if we don't have time to elaborate on that, but that is a prime example of leading with love. People will look at you, and kung maladilan ka, he says that if you love the people who work for you, love the people that you work with, it will just come back to you. Okay, so that's the first mindset, to lead with love. Okay, the second is to lead with integrity. Okay? And in times of uncertainty and transition, people really look up to leaders who can exude integrity and trust. Okay? Sige nga, how can you define in the chat box what is integrity for you? Go ahead. Sige. In your mind, what is your definition of integrity? You can say it in a word or in a sentence. Okay. I'm sure everybody wants to be known as a leader of integrity. Okay. All right. Pure says being truthful in words and deeds. Truthful. Okay. Doing the right thing even though nobody's looking. I like that. Ginagawa pa rin yung promise niya. He doesn't break his promises. Sabi ni EJ, may paninindigan. Ayan. Ayan. Importante yun. Walking your talk. Doing good while no one is watching. Someone who is trustworthy. Judy says, working even if no one sees him or her. Right. Doing right even if no one sees. Ayan. All right. So it's curious because the word integrity comes from the root word integer. And if you're a mathematician or an engineer, you know that the word integer means whole. Diba? Yeah. So wholeness, when I look at the word wholeness, what I remember is the word shalom. And Shalom in the Hebrew, if you go to Israel, you're greeted with shalom, which means peace. And shalom has the same root word as the word for complete or whole. In other words, integer or integrity. Meaning, if you are a whole person or a person of integrity, you will live a life of peace. Yes? So we need to be, we have to be whole persons and trustworthy, not just in one aspect of our life, but in all aspects, whether it's family, business, community, in every aspect of our lives. If not, we will not have peace. And it's important that our followers, the people who we lead, see that in us. Na wala tayong double standard or double life na tinatawag. And without integrity, a leader won't be able to earn the trust of his people. And without trust, there is no respect. And without respect, you lose influence. Because without influence, there's no leadership. Because at the end of the day, leadership is influence. Nothing more and nothing less. All right. Okay, are you learning something? Are you excited to learn the next two ones? We're talking about quality number 3, which is to lead with faith. So first we started with lead with love, and then lead with integrity, and now we're looking at faith. Okay. The question is, what kind of leader would you rather follow? One who is optimistic and has faith that things will work out, or one who is pessimistic? Right? What is faith anyway? Faith means being sure of the things that we hope for and knowing something is real even if we do not see it. In other words, the best leaders are dealers of hope. And I've said this before. Hope, my mentor said, who many years ago, that hope really for him means helping other people every day. That is what hope is. Ganda, di ba? Helping other people every day. Are you a leader who exudes that hope? In today's world of uncertainty that we're going through, we still need to be hopeful. My mentor told me before, no, magluksa ka dun sa upline mo. Look for your mentor, look for the person who is mentoring you. Pero wag ka magluksa dun sa mga tao mo sa baba. Wag ka magsabi ng there's no more hope. They are looking for a leader who will give them hope, who has the faith to say, this too shall pass. Okay? That God has a plan and purpose, and we have to trust in that. Ay, napapasay tuloy ako. But faith works, one thing that I share with a lot of the people that I've spoken to, even before the elections and during this pandemic was, the hope that I have, the faith that I have is that I liken the crisis that we've been going through as a forest fire. COVID has really burned a lot of not just businesses but also dreams, personal dreams, if you like to think about that. Pero the metaphor or story that I like to share as a leader is the story of the jack pine, the cone. Are you familiar with that? Yung jack pine tree, di ba? Sa Baguio, you'll see that if you look at the pine tree, there are cones, okay? In particular, this jack pine tree, okay? So ano nangyari dyan? Pag may sunog, how do they replicate? How do they multiply? Ito pala yun. Until a forest fire sweeps through and melts the resin of the cone and allows the cones to open and spill out the seeds, it will not open. And this is pala part of God's miraculous design to replant the forest after a fire. Okay? So hindi pala siya magbubukas hanggang hindi siya until it goes through, literally, through the fire. And after the fire, the seeds spill out and then there sprouts new life, a new forest. And it reminds me really of this promise. God said in the Bible in Isaiah 40, he says, do not remember the former things nor consider the things of old. Behold, I will do a new thing. Doesn't that give you hope, diba? Now it shall spring forth. Shall you not know it? I will even make a road in the wilderness and rivers in the desert. So kung kayo ay nagluluksa, you know, the promise is God is doing a new thing. Kung kayo nagluluksa because of the things that you've lost during the pandemic, or maybe your candidate lost, God is making a new way. We have to all go through the fire so that new seedlings, a new, new trees, a new forest can spring to life. Right. So that's the kind of leader that people want to follow. Someone who will give people hope. Okay. And lastly, that quality number 4 that was mentioned is a leader who empowers, the leader who guides. Okay. Actually, a leader who will also not will actually start mentoring and training people below him, because as Peter Drucker said, there's no success without a successor. Okay? There's no success without a successor. So people will look for and will follow a leader who will empower them, who will speak life to them, and actually expect excellence from them, who will not who will not um, allow you to be mediocre, right? And a lot of this has to do with our mindsets. And right now, maybe we are affected by what's happening around us. We have to guard against that kasi meron pong tinatawag na Pygmalion effect or self-fulfilling prophecy. Diba? Na kunyari, nung mga bata tayo, hindi ko lang kung naabutan yun nung kami, nung panahon ko, ayaw ko, EJ, kung ikaw pag tumatakbo ka sa kalye, sasabihan ka ng mga magulang mo or mga lola mo, oy, EJ, huwag kang tumakbo, madatapa ka, di ba? Tapos ano nangyari? Nadapa ka nga. Naging self-fulfilling prophecy. And the same thing happens with our staff. Kung even in our minds, we say, ang kupad-kupad naman ito, wala nang pag-asa itong tao to. And the same thing with our country. If today we say, oh no, hindi na naling kandidato ko, wala nang pag-asa itong bayan natin. In business, it's called the Rosenthal effect. In other words, expectations placed on a person, be it negative or positive, influence the person and their behavior. In fact, in the Harvard Business Review, the Rosenthal effect was cited. They did an actual experiment in companies, and they did find out that the greater the expectations placed upon people, the better they perform. Yeah. So to put into context, as a leader, how are your expectations on your people? Have you downgraded it? Or have you actually leveled it up? What do you expect from yourself? What do you expect from your people? Have you increased expectations? Because look, the greater the expectations, the better people will actually perform. Yeah. So what are the thoughts and expectations you have on your people? Do you expect them to be just average or excellent? Right? Do you expect them to climb all the way to the top, or do you expect them to just be average or go towards the middle of the mountain? I love this. My mentor asked me a question. Ardy, do you know what going to the middle of the mountain means? And settling for less, settling for just half or not going all the way to meet your goals. And he told me that the middle of the mountain is literally called middle, and ochre mountain. If you go to the middle of the mountain, you are actually settling to be mediocre. Galing, di ba? That's what mediocre means. So people are looking for a leader who will challenge them out of mediocrity and follow them all the way to the top. So let's review the 4 mindsets of the post-pandemic leader. If we choose, kompletuhin na natin yung kanina yung prayer, di ba? To lead with love. Okay? Yes. That's the first step, or one of the qualities. Let's choose to lead with life, with love, with integrity, with faith while empowering our people. So with that, I hope you were inspired and given some hope and something to chew on and maybe adapt as a template in your own leadership journey. So maraming salamat. EJ?
Thank you, nakaka-empower.
Wow, thank you so much, Ardy. Choose life, no? Love, integrity, faith, and empowered. So,
Yes.
thank you so much for that sharing. Naku,
I know.
parang nagugustuhan ko siya kasi in spite of many trials, tribulations, and challenges that face our way, a true leader is someone who can rise above and even multiply himself. Na hindi lang, it doesn't stop with himself. He actually empowers other people to do the same. And that's what I really love about your talk.
How about me?
Tsaka ang ganda din, nagustuhan ko rin yung yung analogy about the pine cone. Diba na the pine cone has to die in order for the forest to start again.
Actually, even burn.
And even burn, diba? In order for the forest to start again. And so, even though we see so many challenges around, kahit tayo nagluluksa, there's still hope. And we know that, even if we cannot see it right now, the fact that we know that in the death of something, it can ignite new beginnings. I mean, for me, that really gives so much hope. So I have so much hope looking forward from today. Thank you for that. Kasi
You're welcome.
honestly, isa rin ako sa mga nagluluksa. But I recall this verse in the Bible, which is in Romans chapter 8:28. All things work out for the good of those who love God. Those who have been called according to His purpose. So may purpose at may dahilan ng lahat ng yan. Hindi natin nakikita, pero ang Diyos alam ang lahat.
Wow.
So thank you so much, Ardy, for that sharing of
pero
yours.
Hindi pa tayo tapos.
Yes, hindi pa tayo tapos. There's more. And ikaw na siguro, since kilala mo itong ating next speaker, ikaw na siguro mag-introduce sa kanya.
Yeah. So I'm really excited to introduce the team from Havas Media, and I was really inspired by what they shared. I think this was about a month ago when I attended their briefing on the COVID generation, and I decided to invite them here to address and to share their findings with the Gamma members, because I thought it would be able these findings would equip. And not just equip, but encourage those listening to face what's coming. Ito yung mga trends na nangyari. Hindi lang to haka-haka. Pero ito yung mga actual findings and results from the mindsets and thoughts of what they call the prosumer. Okay. So unahin na natin. We'll have Phil Tiongson and Gian de la Cruz. I'll introduce Phil, and then maybe he can introduce his colleague Gian. Phil, he's the head of Havas Consult. It's the business and marketing intelligence division of Havas Ortega Group, headed by my good friend Jos Ortega, who invited me to sit in and watch their presentation. So, Phil has been in the marketing and advertising, research and analytics industry for more than 20 years. Yeah, and he's worked with big advertising and media companies across the Philippines, Singapore, Vietnam, and Malaysia. Tapos, numbers person daw siya. And he likes finding out the stories behind the numbers.
Siguro siya yung masasabi mong numbers are sexy. Well, we'll find out. And I'm really looking forward to what he has to share today. So please, ladies and gentlemen, let us welcome Phil Tiongson.
Thank you very much, Ardy and Miriam. It's really a great pleasure to be here. I'd like to thank you very much for inviting us to speak with you today. And essentially, very inspiring yung talk ni Sir Ardy, and I don't know how I can follow through after that talk, but hopefully with this talk that we have about the generation COVID, we'd be able to inform you and give you some insights on how COVID generation or how COVID has changed all of us, basically. So we call this report the Generation COVID Report, and it is a report that was done by our company, Havas Ortega. And to just briefly describe to you what our who Havas Ortega is. Our mission actually in Havas Ortega is to make a meaningful difference. And this meaningful difference is we are tasked every day in our office to make a meaningful difference to brands, to businesses, and to the people that we work with, as well as to society. So if there's anything that defines us, Havas Ortega, it actually is defined by meaningfulness. So that's how we define ourselves. And Generation COVID is actually part of a bigger project that we have in terms of finding out what's driving Filipino consumers nowadays. We know that COVID has changed us dramatically, but what really has changed? So we came up with a report on what we call the prosumer report, which is essentially a report that looks at the leading edge, people who are living at the leading edge, who are the trendsetters, who are opinion leaders, and who are basically shaping the world as we know it. Now, this study, the prosumer report, was conducted in 32 countries. It had about 17,500 respondents. And in the Philippines, we had 500 respondents all in all. And then we actually surveyed what we call the prosumers. So prosumers, who are they? The prosumers are 15 to 20% of the Filipino population, and they're probably amongst us at the moment. Some of you are probably Filipino prosumers. And Filipino prosumers are the ones who are at the leading edge of new beliefs, new attitudes, new philosophies, and new behaviors. Whether that's a new tech gadget or a new belief or a new idea, they're the ones who are actually the first to adopt them. Whatever they believe now, for example, at this point in time, the rest of the population will believe 18 to 24 months down the road. So whatever they are actually doing right now, whatever they're believing right now, the rest of the population will adopt 18 to 24 months down the road. So studying the prosumers in the Philippines is similar to studying the future, because the prosumers are what we can call the harbingers of what a possible future could be. So it could be an indication of what will the future Philippines be. So who are the prosumers? Again, they're very influential in their small groups of social media influencers. They embrace innovation and they constantly seek information and experiences. They're also marketing savvy and enthusiastic adopters and testers and disseminators of new content, new media, and new technology. So, sino sa inyo ang prosumers? Who are you? Do you believe yourself to be a prosumers? Now, the thing about prosumers is it's actually something that goes or cuts across socioeconomic and income classes. So even amongst the class Ds and the class ABs, for example, there are prosumers amongst them. And our goal is to find out how they are living their lives and what do they believe in and what are the behaviors that they have, so we can study what could happen in the future. So just to give you an idea of who the prosumers are, 97% of Filipino prosumers consider themselves to be the first person they know to try the newest things. So they're really at the leading edge of new things, new behaviors, and new philosophies. 88% of Filipino prosumers are consulted by their peers or by their barkada or their circles on a range of topics, including brands, ideas, philosophies, and beliefs. In addition to that, they're very much engaged in pop culture. So if you ask them what happened in the news yesterday or last week, what is the top selling album or music in Spotify, or what's the best selling film, for example, they will know all about these things because they're very much immersed in pop culture. What makes a prosumer different, however, is that they actually believe that it is their responsibility to make a difference in the world. Actually, 93% of them would say that part of their being alive is making sure that they make a difference in the world that they live in. And in fact, 86% of them believe that however small the thing that they are doing to make a difference, it does make a difference. So not only do they believe that they can make a difference, whatever they do, they believe are actually going to make a difference in the world that they live in. Now let's just go back 2 years ago. For most of us, 2020 was supposed to be just another year. It's just another year on the calendar after 2019. We finished 2019 with a bang, and we were hoping to get into 2020 with similar feelings, perhaps, as we ended 2019. However, on March 16, 2020, if you still remember that, we actually were put on a lockdown. We were put on quarantine because COVID-19 basically put our lives on hold. And a whole slew of new things actually happened after that. Work from home became the norm amongst office workers and probably amongst your clients in the insurance and financial advice category. Most of them will have been working from home at that point in time. Online classes for our children became a new wave of life. And then they became parts of virtual classrooms as opposed to going to school physically. Social distancing, whenever we come together as a family or as friends, for example, social distancing became the norm whenever we meet up with others. And face masks and face shields became basic necessities in addition to food and water. So undoubtedly, COVID-19 has definitely disrupted our lives, and it remains to be the great disruptor in our lives. Now, the thing is, it has offended the lives of everyone. Wala siyang pinili. Lahat tayo naapektuhan. Lahat tayo na-affect ng COVID-19. And that's regardless of age, regardless of generation, regardless of income. And that's why we believe that we all are the COVID generation. We went through the storm of COVID and we are now living the impact of COVID-19 basically. And we are COVID generation because we are now different because of COVID-19. In fact, so much so that a lot of us, 79% of us actually felt lonelier during this pandemic than ever before. And that's especially true for millennials, with 79% of the millennials saying that they've never felt lonelier during the pandemic as it was during the pandemic. We also felt the impact on jobs. In fact, 35% of prosumers and 41% of millennials said that in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic, the most significant hardship has been the struggle to find a job. So just imagine those people, the students who graduated in 2020 and 2021, how they fared in their job hunting search. We also felt the uncertainties of the future, and we probably are also feeling still the uncertainty of the future. In fact, 36% of millennials said that the most significant hardship has been the challenge of planning for an unknown future, because we don't know what's going to happen during the COVID-19 lockdowns, and we still don't know what's going to happen right now. Obviously, we missed what we used to be, with 35% lamenting the loss of social and foundational experiences. In fact, amongst Gen Zs, that's 22%, because how Gen Zs are living their lives now are significantly different from how millennials, Gen X, and Silvers actually lived their 20s life previously. Everyone has had to make sacrifices. In fact, 71% said na yung generation nila has had to make many sacrifices because of COVID-19 pandemic. And look at the number for millennials. 9 out of 10 millennials actually felt that they have made so many sacrifices because of the pandemic and the lockdown. And all in all, basically, we all believe that the COVID-19 has changed us, has changed our world dramatically. 8 out of 10 believe that the world after COVID-19 will be significantly and radically different from 2019, from pre-COVID-19 times. And we all believe that living life to the fullest will be key. Because with COVID-19, it became a threat to us, not just our livelihood, but also to our lives and our health. And so much so that 96% said that after this pandemic, if it ends, when it ends, I will make up for the lost time and I will live my life to the fullest. And look at the numbers. It's particularly true for Gen Zs, for millennials, and also for the Gen Xers amongst us. Shifts in beliefs are also common, particularly in the role of education in our search for success. In fact, 79% already say that one can have a successful life even without receiving a university degree or diploma. And that's particularly true for the Gen Zs and the millennials, with 73% and 76%. So this shift in behavior is actually a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, because it has reworked our priorities. Work-life balance issues are also something that are now part of daily conversations. We talked about the Great Resignation, and basically the Great Resignation has become the Great Reprioritization, that I would rather take a job with lower pay but allows me the flexibility to balance work and life as opposed to having a higher pay that consumes all the time naman. That's almost 80% of the Filipino prosumers and 72% of millennials are saying it's okay to have low-paying job as long as I have work-life balance. I would rather go for that than have a high-paying job, but that actually consumes naman all of my time. Now, the other thing that's also shifted amongst us is that we've become more cause-oriented. We actually became even more open to activism. Cause-oriented activism and participation is actually fast becoming the norm. In fact, 44% of the consumers say na, I prefer to be an activist for the causes I care about as opposed to committing to a political party. And this is probably something that we have just seen, for example, in the last elections. As opposed to aligning oneself with a political party, what we saw are people who are activating themselves, who are joining causes in order for us to change the world and change the Philippines, in the hopes that it will be a better future for all of us. In an uncertain world, though, it remains to be dependent on us. We can shape the future. And in fact, 90% of the prosumers say that the worst thing about COVID-19 is not knowing when it will end, but it doesn't discourage us. Because for most of the prosumers, they actually believe that we can take the proverbial bull by the horns and actually shape the future for ourselves. However, change will only happen, and it will happen starting with me if I start with my own community. In fact, 96% of the Filipino prosumers say that changing the world starts with helping people in my neighborhood or in my community. So those are some of the things that have happened or that are changing in the lives of the Filipinos. But there are three particular areas that we would like to focus on that actually also saw a lot of changes and a lot of shifts because of COVID-19. And these are in the areas of politics, in the area of work, and in the area of how we live our lives, our leisure lives, in our lifestyles. We're seeing shifts basically on how Filipinos view politics. In fact, amongst prosumers, we see that 1 in 2 believe that political leaders are disconnected from the aspirations of today's younger generation. About 61% of the millennials and 58% of the Gen Zs actually believe that political leaders currently that we have are disconnected from the aspirations and from the goals and the dreams of the younger generation. However, in spite of this, they remain to be very much engaged. In fact, 83% believe that they are most engaged in their own way, rather in spite of them being less political or less politicized. And everyone is also engaged in key issues that are important in our society, such as gender. 89% believe that they are leading the fight for a world that is more equal in terms of gender, as well as inclusiveness, basically, in terms of LGBTQ inclusion, as well as religious beliefs, respect for religious beliefs. So there's a lot of, amongst the prosumers, there's actually a lot of openness to other people who may be thinking or who may believe in other things beyond what they personally believe in. Sustainability and being environmentally friendly and being responsible are also issues that are in the minds of the Filipino prosumers. In fact, 93% of millennials believe that their generation is leading the fight for a world that is more sustainable and more environment friendly. So all of these are also because of COVID-19. In fact, in addition to that, they also choose to be personally involved in activism. In fact, 46% of millennials and 44% of prosumers say that they would rather they prefer to be an activist for the causes they care about as opposed to committing to a political ideology or a political party. Now, those are the shifts that have happened in politics, and maybe you can think about them and look at what happened in the last election from these lenses, and maybe you can see some parallelisms as to how how we have reacted to the campaigns of the presidentiables as well as those who are running for office. However, shifts have not been really just focused on politics. There have also been shifts in the way we view work. In fact, if we are to summarize the viewpoints of the prosumers, it's basically this: to hell with bullshit jobs. In fact, 65% of them and 74% of millennials actually say that their generation is tired of bullshit jobs. And what they crave for is essentially work that will have a real impact to society and to the world, that will make the world a better place. In fact, if you look at the Great Resignation from this lens, basically we are seeing that the Great Resignation is not just a resignation or a departure from their existing work. It's actually the great reprioritization. In fact, 79% actually said that the pandemic has made them realize that they should rethink their priorities, largely because their career matters less than what they had thought of it initially. In fact, amongst millennials, that's higher pa at 84%, saying that they have reprioritized everything because of COVID-19. Now, what are they trying to free up? What are they trying to achieve with the great reprioritization? Time, essentially, is crucial for them. In fact, 79% nga would say that they would take a lower pay, but that's some lower paying job so long as it offers them work-life balance. And they will choose it over something that pays them more, but that consumes all of their time. Time is of the essence for these prosumers and for these millennials and Gen Zs. But what will they do with their time? It's essentially time for themselves. In fact, 54% said that the pandemic has made them realize that they should prioritize making time for themselves. And maybe not just for pampering but themselves, but to make sure that they are mentally, physically, spiritually healthy. And then also the time that they will have freed up from this great pre-prioritization will also go to family. In fact, the 40% of the prosumers and the millennials said that the pandemic has made them realize that they should settle down to start a family or devote more time to the family that they already have. In addition to time for myself and time for family, they also are looking for time that they can devote for causes. In fact, 65% say that they want to work less and dedicate more time to causes that matter to society, that matter to the world. And look at the numbers for millennials. That's 2 out of 3 millennials saying that they are willing to work less and dedicate more time to causes that matter to them. Now, of course, we can't help but we will still be looking for jobs. We will still be looking for opportunities. However, what people will be looking for, what millennials, Gen Zs, Gen X are actually doing right now is that when they are searching for jobs, they are also searching for a way to make a meaningful impact. In fact, the search for a meaningful impact is becoming more and more apparent. In fact, and the way they are going to make meaningful impact is by joining a big company that can work on bigger projects that will have a bigger impact on the society and the world at large. However, about 40%, when given the opportunity, they would actually create their own companies because they will have control over the things that they can do and contribute to the world at large. When choosing a job, of course, financial security still matters, but 21%, that's 1 out of 5, are already saying that meaningfulness of my work, the impact that I can create, the impact that I can give, the causes that matter to me and to the world, to society, how can I give back? That's already meaningful, or that's already something that they are considering when they're looking for a job, in addition to benefits, financial security, and career advancement. That's what's happening when it comes to work. However, we also noted a lot of changes in the way we lead our lifestyle. How we live our lives is already changing. In fact, a lot of us are already considering eating responsibly. 56% said that to solve the world's problems, they're personally ready to become more vegetarian, because that's more friendly for the planet and that's more responsible for the planet. Mindless consumption, shopping, for example, and consumerism are now being questioned. In fact, 90% of the Filipino prosumers say that they want a generation their generation to build a world that is less consumption obsessed. And look at the numbers for millennials as well as for Gen Zs. Those numbers are quite significant as well. There is also a return to minimalism and a return to basics. In fact, 94% of the Filipino prosumers and 81% of millennials say that in order to solve the world's problems, in order to contribute to society, they're personally ready to lead a more minimalist lifestyle, shunning consumerism, shunning shopping basically. There are tensions, however, it's not going to be smooth, because when we look at how we lead our lives and what we believe in, we also saw some disparity at the moment. And these are the tensions that probably will be addressed in the future. Now, essentially, if we are to summarize the tension that people are experiencing right now, it's a tension between change, the need for change, versus enjoying now. Because remember, I told you earlier that a lot of us are looking forward to the end of the pandemic and making up for the lost time that we lost because of the lockdowns, because of the pandemic. In fact, we see this tension in these numbers. 89%, for example, believe that we need to create as much urgency for ecological and environmental problems as we have for the COVID-19 pandemic. However, 53% on the other side of the equation, the COVID-19 crisis has made them more inclined to live in the present and not plan for the future. So you can see the tension there. Should we have urgency about the problems that we have and plan for solving them in the future? Or should we live in the moment and live for the moment, live fully in the moment and not to plan for the future? We are also seeing this tension when it comes to shopping. I mentioned earlier that shopping is going to change, but right now there is a tension because 68% of us, 68% of the Filipino prosumers say that they're personally ready to stop buying fast fashion. But I'm sure you've heard of Shane or Shine, which is a Gen Z retailer that's eyeing an IPO in the US because of how hit it has become, how successful it has become during the pandemic period. Now, those are two tensions that you have. On one hand, people are saying, I'm not buying fast fashion because it's irresponsible and not friendly to the environment. But you have Shane, which is all about fast fashion, actually booming in terms of business. This is also seen in the way we think about travel. In fact, 50%, 1 in 2, are personally ready to avoid air travel because air travel contributes to the degradation of the environment and harms the environment, harms the planet. However, what have we done in the past? We have done revenge travel. And revenge travel is something that has happened not only in the last couple of months, but it's something that's also in the minds of the minds of the consumers at the moment, as we go through a more relaxed classification of our alert system, alert level system for COVID-19. Now, 91% are also saying that they're ready to produce more of the things that they use. However, we all know that during the pandemic, e-commerce, online shopping, online ordering, Lazada, Shopee, and Shine, for example, their businesses have boomed. In fact, 1 in 3 of us bought clothing, shoes, shampoo, cleaning products, and skincare products online without going to the store. So those are the tensions that we are seeing. And we think this is where brands and companies can help consumers. How can brands and companies actually help consumers? In fact, we can turn to the consumers themselves, to the prosumers themselves, because what they expect, what the prosumers expect is that large companies and large brands should contribute positively to the world of tomorrow. And look at the numbers for Gen X and for the millennials. These are numbers that are cutting across generations, essentially. So things have changed basically in the way we work, in the way we look at our leaders, in the way we lead our leisure lives, for example. Things have changed. We all have changed because of COVID-19. And because of that, we are COVID generation. We are generation COVID. We are redefined, reshaped by COVID-19. Now, how do we respond to that is the quick question. And my colleague, Gian de la Cruz, will actually go through some of the implications of these findings and how these may be applied to your businesses in the insurance and financial advisory category. So Gian is actually our head of MX. He leads our strategic planning, and it is his mission to bring to life all the data that I just shared with you into meaningful actions, into campaigns that are meaningful to consumers, to brands, in order that the businesses that these brands have may thrive. So over to you, Gian.
Okay, thank you, Sir Phil, for that introduction. So kung si Sir Phil yung numbers guy, ako naman yung kwento guy. So I try to craft meaningful stories out of the sexy numbers coming from Sir Phil's turf. Yun yung task ko sa agency basically. So allow me to quickly share my screen so I can start my presentation. So I'll jump off from Sir Phil's point kanina. So yung nabanggit niyang specific point on what brands and companies, in this case, Gamma, in this case, how can you guys adapt to this generation COVID that we're seeing, this new breed of consumers, of prosumers that we're seeing out in the market. Okay. So obviously, as mentioned by Sir Phil in the previous slide, we know for a fact that definitely the pandemic has impacted the way we live, and it has been pivotal in evolving us as people. So the changes and the pivots really shook us, but also altered our perspectives on how we interact with ourselves, sa ibang tao, and as well as other or external implements. And what we know, and I think this was one of the closing slides of Sir Phil earlier, that change is inevitably daunting. Nakakatakot talaga yung pagbabago, lalo na kapag nasa, I think Sir Ardy and Miss Miriam also mentioned about transitioning. So yung mga transitions na ganito, lagi siyang nakakatakot. It's never easy to go through a transition or through change. But that also is a call for brands to become more meaningful, because with change comes more expectations from brands. The transition and the change put more weight on brands and companies to really enact their crucial roles in making sure that consumers are ready to face the challenges of this age. Lalo pa ngayon na may uncertainty nga, hindi natin alam kailan matatapos or where are we even in this pandemic universe na ginagalawan natin. Why we're also seeing that companies are under the watchful, discerning, and judging eyes of prosumers. That's why definitely there's higher expectations and heavier responsibilities for companies like Gamma in this case, and of course other brands as well in the market. Judging eyes, very true to, especially with the proliferation of cancel culture. I'm pretty sure all of us are Gen Zs in this room. So I'll take that as a yes, so lahat tayo Gen Zs. But it's very common, especially with the younger generation, to cancel something or someone easily. And I think it's also because of the proliferation of social media. That's why companies like Gamma and brands as well should be more cautious on how they move and how they interact with the generation COVID. What we did is, coming from the insights shared by Sir Phil, the sexy numbers that you saw in the previous presentation, what we did is we devised a 5-point guide, or tawag namin tip sheet technique, that will hopefully help you in managing your businesses, your staff, as well as thinking of the right things to say to your audiences, to your consumers, to your prospects, to your partners. So these are 5 key things companies, in this case Gamma, especially in the insurance industry, should be doing right now. So I'll go through each of the 5 points, and later on I'll summarize them for easier reference. So the first one is all about keeping it real. So what we found out is authenticity is very important for the generation COVID. That's why when leading prospects, be it a potential client or a potential hire, a potential employee, we really need to aim for authenticity versus relatability. Parang instead of relating to someone, of course it's always good. We're not saying that that's bad. But at this point in time, we need to acknowledge the power of authenticity. authentic connections. Instead of saying na nakaka-relate ka sa isang tao, it's better to ask. No, to further explain my point, we want to make really every prospect that we have feel like they're talking to a peer more than an, in this case for Gamma, more than an insurer. No? That's why we feel that aside from the usual tactics of relating to their struggles or relating to their challenges, it's really also important for us to actively listen to them. Be sensitive to their needs. No? The tendency kasi when we get excited about our products, when we get excited about our brand, we talk about it nonchalantly, not knowing na masyado nang overload yung kausap natin or yung prospect natin. So in this case, we found out that being our authentic selves, actively listening to our audiences and being sensitive to what they want to know or what they want to receive is something that will definitely go a long way for us, no, as companies. So that's the first point, keeping it real, all about authenticity. Dapat nating tandaan yan. Now, while relatability is still very important, the generation COVID will be more attuned to listening to someone who's more authentic than someone who is relatable. So the second point naman is all about the way we talk, no, about our products. Nanggaling tayo dun sa era before, probably in the 90s or the early 2000s, ng fear-mongering whenever we talk about insurance is something that's common. No? It's common in the industry, not only here in the Philippines, but also other markets. No? Especially that we also work with different insurance brands, not only in the Philippines, but also in other markets across our network, in Asia, in APAC, and obviously the world, kasi we operate on a global scale as well, no, Havas. So fear-mongering as a narrative is something that's common years back. But right now, especially with all the uncertainty, stressors, sa lahat na na-experience natin sa ngayon, fear-mongering just won't cut it anymore. Instead, what we found out in this report, in Generation COVID Consumer Report, and also one of our meaningful brand study, which is another proprietary study that we do at Havas, we found out that consumers at this point, actually a third of Filipino consumers, look for brands that are willing to give genuine and sincere help. And what do we mean by that? At this point, content that propagates negativity are either filtered or blocked. Yung content ng produkto mo or yung content ng brand mo is something that propagates negativity or uncertainty, mabilis yan ma-block or mabilis yan ma-filter. Especially, as mentioned, millennials and Gen Zs have their ways when it comes to ad blocking. Panonood lang ng YouTube, di ba? Ayaw nilang maestorbo, so they would easily get an ad blocking service, sometimes even for free, so that makapanood sila ng walang humpay or ng walang disturbance. No? Blocking someone on Facebook is as easy as a single tap. So, in control talaga ang mga Generation COVID, and in this case, and in reference to my point earlier, especially the millennials and Gen Zs, they're very tech savvy, no? Very socially aware din sila. So it's easy for them to do that. No? That's why we feel that brands, companies must be really sensitive to this particular tidbit, no? And offer help that transcend what's expected. So for example, you're an insurance company, of course, ang binibenta mo is insurance. But other than that, what else can you provide? Other than financial literacy, meron ka ba bang ibang pwedeng i-value add dun sa conversation? Because we feel that we need that nowadays, no, to make a deeper dent in the consumer's headspace. Otherwise, titignan lang nila tayo as option A and option B. And of course, in a slew of options, you need something that's differentiated, something that's unique, something that's meaningful, that will make your consumers or your audiences, your prospects, sticky to your brand, technically. So that is the second point. Fear-mongering is out, genuine, sincere help is in. Now that leads us to our third point. Yung third point naman is something that alludes to one of Sir Phil's point about sustainability and how important it is, no, for our generation, for the Generation COVID. The third point is all about greenifying policies by welcoming more sustainable options. We need to understand that whenever we talk about sustainability, eco-consciousness, these are not marketing ploys. So we can't just say now we are a sustainable company because yada, yada, yada. You need to show it. You need to imbibe it as a company. You need to imbibe it as leaders so that your staff and your staff and your people will also follow suit. Should be imbibed as a mindset. It's not just a marketing ploy that we can easily say and easily get away with. That's why we feel that brands and companies must find smart, green ways to truly evolve their business and operations. Isa sa napansin kasi namin, the insurance industry is really heavy on printouts, brochures, leaflets, policies na nakaprint. Obviously, it's part of the system. But that's part of the risk. If you really want to be more sustainable, if you really want to, how do you say it? If you really want to employ a more sustainable mindset, a more sustainable culture in your business, then you should start thinking about these things. How do we think of sustainable options? Baka pag printing, maybe there's a way for us to use something else instead of paper, things like that. So sustainability is an important part of the mindset of the generation COVID. This is something that we can't remove from their psyche. So it's very important to be on this train or on this movement as well with them. So that is our third point. Moving on to our fourth point, which is all about hard selling versus soft selling, or in this case, meaningful selling. So what we know is that as brands and companies, we need to demonstrate social awareness, as selling point blank or selling as it is won't yield results anymore. And I think yung hard sell is something that a lot of brands have already started dropping because they know nga that millennials, Gen Zs, even yung mga fringe na tinatawag natin, yung mga nasa gitna ng millennials and Gen X, yung nasa gitna ng millennials at ng Gen Z, even yung mga yon, they don't really latch themselves onto brands that really sell point blank, na puro selling lang. So they need to also see that the brand is socially aware. That's why napansin ko to sa insurance industry, na tapping into passions is something that we do quite profusely in the insurance industry whenever we get prospects or acquire new people for our team. We always talk about travel, for example, or entertainment as key passion points. It's a category convention. It's something that we do profusely in the category. But what's important to note is that the generation COVID, it's important for them to see that the company and your team is also having a stand on societal issues like inclusivity, the involvement of the LGBTQIA plus community in the business, as well as women empowerment. These are things, among others, that are important for our audience as well. They need to hear that from you guys. It's not something na dadaanan or papasadahan lang. We really need to ensure that whenever we talk about selling our company or not selling the company, but selling ourselves to prospects, we need to understand na hihimayin nila tayo like a tedious job for them to really dissect each and every layer of the company, of the vision of the company and the people running it. So it's very important to have a stand on societal issues. Dalawa lang itong nabanggit ko, inclusivity and women empowerment, but obviously we have a lot of other things to consider here. Diversity in terms of religion and belief, at marami pang iba. So that is the fourth point, demonstrating social awareness as selling point blank won't yield results. And last, but definitely not the least, yung fifth point natin is more than insurers, we need to remember that more than that, and I think this is also a good thing to imbibe as leaders, more than insurers, you guys are also societal contributors to nation building. I think, hindi ko alam kung hindi nyo to madalas marinig, but I think this is a very important point. I remember when I was writing this particular presentation, this is something that I feel like all insurers should hear. Na hindi lang tayo nagbebenta ng insurance, hindi lang tayo nagtuturo ng financial literacy, but we need to also absorb the fact na nandito tayo sa isang business that can really change and shape the Philippines in the future. And yes, it is a challenge. It is a very big onus, technically, but it's also a promising and meaningful role that all of us, especially you guys in Gamma, and as well as the insurance companies and brands should really imbibe, no? Definitely, there's a conversation about financial literacy. It's something that we share with our audience, with our prospects. But we should also be talking about financial literacy for all. No? More than financial literacy, actually, insurance brands at this point, as well as companies, must realize the category's bigger role in shaping the future of the country. Apart ang insurance companies, even financial advisors, sa pagbuo ng mas maunlad na Pilipinas in the future. So it's a very tall order, but it's something that needs the financial advisory in the insurance company or the category that we're in. So those are the 5 points. And just to quickly summarize, again, as companies, as leaders, as brands, we should be doing these 5 now. Exceed relatability and aim for authenticity whenever we talk to our prospects. Scare tactics are out, so don't ever think about scare tactics anymore, because otherwise consumers and audiences will probably fly away. Sincerity is in, we need to remember that. The third point, stick to green policies. Very important to imbibe that sustainable mindset or headspace, especially nowadays na sustainability and eco-consciousness is something that our generation is very passionate about. The fourth point is all about the social causes that attract prospects. No, hindi na lang travel, hindi na lang entertainment. They also love the idea of participating in causes. And I think Sir Phil really hammered on that point kanina, no? Emphasized on that point. They are really involved with everything and anything that can do a social or societal change. So think of ideas to incorporate that in your talk points whenever you talk to your prospects. And the fifth point is help fortify the country's future. Always remember the fifth point. I think that is something that the insurance and financial advisory category clients and partners should also hear often. Kasi yun nga ang labas sa iba, taga-benta lang na or nagbebenta tayo ng insurance in a product, a specific product or a specific policy. But bigger than that, there's definitely a meaningful role for the insurance industry and the financial advisory industry to take part, in this nation building aspect of things. So that this list and this summary closes off my presentation, and I hope you find it insightful and helpful as you talk to your prospects, encourage them to join your team or gain new clients. I hope the 5 points will be able to help you. Maraming salamat again to Sir Ardy and to Miss Miriam and the rest of the Gamma for inviting.
Wow, thank you so much.
Hindi pa tayo tapos.
Oo, but thank you so much, Gian, and also Phil. I mean, what we've discussed today, what we've shared with us today are so not just very relevant, but also very timely. Kasi yun talaga, yung mic ko pala wala. Yung kasi talagang kailangan natin in this period of transition. And I like most especially what you shared about, I like that your 5 keys, Gian, will actually helps to contribute to a better future, not just attract the prosumers who are very much prevalent now, diba? And influential, but they actually contribute to a better future for the majority. That's what I really love about what you shared. How about you, babe?
Ako, busog ako, pero parang may buffet. Pero Gian, anong una, kung meron lang isang or maybe isang dapat gawin muna dyan sa listahan. Alin dyan ang dapat unahin?
Is that a question for me, Sir Ardy? Sorry.
Yeah. Ano sa tingin nyo?
What is the one thing?
One thing. Well, for me kasi, I wrote it as such na lahat sila dapat important. So, this puts because I have to pick out of my children. Technically, parang ganun siya. I have to pick out of them. But for me, I think one of the key things kasi na lumabas dun sa study, and I think if I go back to the report presented by Sir Phil, I think the fourth item is something that needs so much attention. Social causes. Yeah, the involvement, we need to exhaust and really tap into this passion that especially the younger audiences that we're talking to. they're really very big on social causes. So we really need to tap into that energy habang may energy pa silang tumulong. So that's, for me, that's one of the quickest actionable point that we should be observing and acknowledging at this point, especially for Gamma, for the insurance industry, or the society at large, really banking on the energy of especially the younger generation when it comes to their interest in social causes.
Yeah. I'm sure, G, maraming mga, later after our discussion, there will be time for question and answer from the Gamma members. But I want to go and ask Phil, what's the story behind this report? Bakit to ginawa? At yun nga, how is it being applied right now by your clients and people who have maybe subscribed to the reports?
Well, actually, this report, yung prosumer report is actually something that we do quite regularly.
Okay.
And the goal of the prosumer report is to understand, firstly, cultural undercurrents, what's happening in the minds of the consumers. However, in the last 2 to 3 years, we've actually reshifted it because we believe in meaningfulness, in providing meaningful difference, in coming up with meaningful difference to people. And what we have done in the last 2 to 3 years is we've repositioned the prosumer report in such a way that it will make a difference, uncover insights about our consumers that will make a difference to their lives and to society at large. So some of the reports that we have done, for example, we've explored sustainability, we've explored mindless consumption into meaningful consumption, and then now Generation COVID, because what we wanted to do was to identify how are consumers actually changing because of the COVID-19 pandemic. How have other clients used this? Actually, in line with what Gian mentioned earlier, a lot of our clients are now looking into being more active, into taking a stand on specific issues. So it's not just something na parang marketing ploy, as Guy mentioned it earlier, but it's more of living and really breathing, being responsible citizens, corporate citizens, and contributors to society. So that's what we are seeing right now in amongst our clients.
Yeah,
Right.
that's so true, Phil. In fact, even in the last elections and what you call this campaign, we see even companies who are declaring who their preferred political or candidate
Yeah.
is, diba?
Right.
We see that.
Yeah, like when we were in Boracay, we were well, where you were campaigning for Lenny and the Kakamping movement, and there were less restaurants along the way that were supporting, and they were giving out pink ice cream,
or pink cupcakes,
and resorts that were allowing that were giving up their space to allow people to express their convictions or their candidates. Pero yeah, na-deja vu ako, Phil and Gia, kasi I don't know if you know my dad, si Ned Roberto. He was we would do a lot of these consumer coping behavior reports. Kaya na-deja vu ako, naalala ko yung mga ginagawa namin a decade or two ago. But I resonate. I really, tinatanong namin kanina ni Mir sa we were talking, prosumer ba tayo or hindi? Parang
bilang
maybe
Gen X,
there are parts, but I can relate kasi nga lately we've been in that less consumption, simple lifestyle, making the pandemic was making us rethink our priorities, and that's why we moved to the province and moved to Aklan. So but I just wonder, you said kasi in the beginning that ito yung mga prosumers, diba, the 20%, pero magiging trend yan and the rest will follow. So ano yung, is that going to be, here in the Philippines, mangyayari ba talaga yan? Meron bang timeline yan when that becomes mainstream?
Okay, medyo nobody knows the future. So medyo I think that's a very interesting question. However, we've seen kasi in the past, for example, in our past studies in the US, in China, as well as in the Philippines. In our prosumer report previously, we were able to uncover certain predictions that actually came true. So, for example, the rise of Trump in the US was predicted by our report because one of the studies that we conducted in the US and globally previously looked at how people actually are thinking of nationalism. How do they identify with with their country, and how strongly do they identify with being nationalistic and patriotic? And because of that, we were able to predict that there will be a time wherein a leader in the US will arise, and that leader will be very much all about patriotism, nationalism, America first. And that happened with Trump. And in the same vein, we also studied the Philippines during that time, pre-Duterte, prior to the election of Duterte. And what we realized during that time is that there's also a surging wave of nationalism, a surging wave of national pride, that I'm proud to be Pinoy, which was a good thing. However, taken to the extremes, it's also something that's not necessarily good because it becomes a little bit more fanaticism naman na siya. And that's actually paved the way to the rise of President Duterte, who won over the ones who were predicted to win the national elections during that time. In China naman, what we have found out is that we predicted that people there will actually be very open to augmenting themselves technologically. And during that, just very recently, there was an announcement in China that people, that there has been a discovery in China that you can clone, for example, human babies. You can clone, and that you can augment yourself with machines and be a superhuman or Superman, literally.
Wow.
Because there is already an openness. And those are things that we see, that we saw previously with our studies and predicted. Now, here's the thing about us, about the prosumer report then. It actually tells you what could be in the future. If things go right or go wrong, this is how the future is going to be like. This is one of our potential futures. However, of course, there are a lot of other factors that will come into play for these to come into fruition. What we can just do now is, if we agree with these emerging trends, should we nurture them? Should we bring them about actively into fruition? Or should we dispel them? Should we discourage them? So it's actually upon us to look at all these data points and see, eto ba makakatulong sa atin or hindi? Kung makakatulong siya, then let's grow them. If not, maybe we should squash them. So yun yung that's the possibilities that we are looking at with the prosumer report.
Wow. It's mind-blowing.
Oo. Speechless ako. At some point, parang dumudugo na ilong.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's really
In a good way.
Phil. In a good way. Oo.
Oh,
Galing.
grabe. Yeah. But I want to show the 5 points that Jean mentioned again kanina, no? Yung sinabi mo kanina, G, about sticking to green policies. The third one, and natatawa ako dun sa yun, na-realize ko, no, sa insurance industry, ang dami-dami ng paperwork, no, the contracts and all, and so I don't know, later on maybe we can ask the EJ and the Gamma members, but is there another
Alternative, greener, sustainable.
aside from that, is there anything else in the industry that you saw that could be maybe while you were thinking of these
needs to be altered
meron pa
in
ba?
order to be greener?
Or meron bang elephant in the room na hindi na-address?
Well, Sir Ardy, Miss Miriam, aside from the paper, I have a brother who used to be a financial advisor. So I know how much paper it consumes for a financial advisor to really share their work and their business with their prospects. Aside from that, I think nabanggit ka rin to kanina that yung pag-practice kasi ng sustainability, it transcends the idea of yung sinabi ko kanina, paper. For us kasi, actually, sharing lang din to, no? Yung prosumer report on sustainability, and alam ni Sir Phil to, was actually one of my favorites because it really impacted the way I live. Because in-apply ko talaga yung learnings doon with the way I live, with the way our family lives. So I think, aside from that step, no, of thinking of another alternative to paper. Siguro as leaders, since we're also managing offices, we're managing teams, I think it's also important to frame that sustainability mindset to our staff more than anything. Siguro, hindi ko alam kung elephant in the room siya. Or for example, nagkayayaan kayo sa Starbucks. Lagi kong ginagawang example to. Instead of opting for the straw, you as a leader should be able to tell your colleagues, you know what, next time bibili ako ng metal straws para may tigi-isa tayong metal straws. We don't need to get that plastic straw from. I don't want to mention any coffee, baka mamaya may mga affinity kayo sa mga coffee shops. Pero parang ganun. The spirit of sustainability should be imbibed by the leader. And I think this also alludes to Sir Ardy's point, no, yung pagiging part ng team, pagiging yung walang success kung walang successor, technically yung gano'n. So we need to pass on these learnings, the spirit of sustainability to our staff, and especially that I think we are in the midst of leaders here. The idea of sustainability should imbibe by the leaders and trickled to their staff, to their people, so that the practice will be observed regularly. You know? More than the paper thing, there are many ways. Sabi nga ni Sir Phil, and one of our findings during the Prosumer Report on Sustainability, bonus na to, Sir Ardy and Miriam. This is coming from another Prosumer Report. Pero sabi nga doon, it can be as little or as small as anything, as simple as using a cup kapag nagtutoothbrush ka instead of letting the water run.
Yes.
So that's something that I was guilty before, but nung ginawa ko yung report, I was like, oo nga naman, no? That's why you have, kapag nagpupunta ka ng mga decor shops or ng mga home, furnishing stuff, kaya pala may katabing cup yung holder ng sabon, for your bathroom, because you're meant to use that cup for brushing your teeth, which is so simple as that. So yun, feeling ko more than the alternative thing on the paper, I think what's more important is really imbibing the sustainability spirit. Not only with the leader, but also the staff.
Yeah.
Yes. So lifestyle changes,
Yes.
Lifestyle change.
And just to add to Gian's point, I think we have to think of sustainability as actually more than just being environmental friendly. Because if we think about it, the SDGs, for example, the UN's SDGs or Sustainability Development Goals go beyond being climate friendly or planet friendly or environmentally friendly. Being sustainable is also looking at the position of women in society and how we treat women, how we treat children, what are their rights, and what are the rights and the responsibilities that we are giving them. Are we developing children? Are we developing women as equally as men? So those are some of the things that we also have to think about. Poverty is a very big thing as well. Sustainability is also about ensuring that no one is left behind because of financial exclusion, financial reasons. Right. So sustainability is such a very big thing. It goes beyond climate change. It goes beyond being planet friendly. Sustainability also when we think about sustainability, we also need to think about women empowerment, children empowerment, mental health, for example, for everyone, inclusion for everyone, and diversity, as well as poverty is also something that we have to think about. So, ang daming pwedeng gawin. Rather than be overwhelmed by the things that we can do, let's be inspired by the things that we can potentially do to make a difference. So that I think is what Generation COVID is asking us to do, to have a look at the potentials and the possibilities.
Right. Ang ganda, no? Ang daming overlaps. Ang dami yung overlap. Parang ang approach dito kailangan holistic eh.
Yeah.
Diba?
Nag-change talaga yung game eh. Like, kanina mention ni Gina, tapos na yung very 90s and 2000 na yung hard selling, di ba? We should shift now to meaningful selling, and especially in the insurance industry. I saw, di ba, nation building, sinabi mo kanina eh. Tama nga yun kasi 80% of people get into debt because of an emergency.
Yes.
Wala silang naitabi. And mangungutang tuloy, di ba? I don't know if you saw the videos kanina that preceded the formal, the videos of the different companies represented in Gamma. So may nakikita ko, di ba, very, very diverse yung approaches nila. I don't know if the other one you could say that it was fear mongering or pero may hugot pa rin eh. Pero, so industry ng insurance parang there's always that element that you have to actually raise, diba, na may element of fear. So maybe this can be the segue na into the Q&A with the members. Pero how is it possible to really go into meaningful selling in this industry?
I think that they're already doing that.
Yeah.
I think that's already. While we're actually engaging Gian and Phil, for the participants in this Zoom meeting, you are free to type in your questions in the chat box. Ha? Kasi baka maubusan na kami, kayo naman. Diba? So please,
EJ, pwede mo na i-open na siguro and chime in whenever you want, EJ and Pure and the rest of the members. Yeah. EJ, may feedback yung ano mo. Ayan, pag nag-mute siya, nawawala. Oo. Nagre-react yung ano mo, nagre-react sa
yung audio. Yeah.
Yan. So anyway, while EJ is fixing his audio, maybe Pure can chime in, and the rest we can now open. If that's okay, we can now open the floor to the other members for Q&A. You can either put in the chat box or request to be unmuted. Yun. Sige. So while we're waiting for that, G and Phil, I mentioned parang, kasi sa akin kanina, meron laging element of fear yung insurance selling na pag mamatay ka, nag-provide ka na ba, may mangyaring di ba? It's part and parcel. So.
Kasi doon naman talaga magagamit eh. But in terms of meaningful marketing, I think that's what they're already doing na pag may mangyari ito, at least meron kang naitabi or at least secure yung family mo. And a lot of their marketing is also about storytelling of how this insurance services actually help them post the tragedy, diba? So, I think that's already what they're trying to do. Yes,
guys, okay na yung audio ko?
Yes, much better.
Ayun, sorry for that, no? Ako may question ako kay Phil tsaka kay Gian. So, siguro kaya medyo mogger yung dating ng insurance selling. Life insurance is an emotionally bought product. So normally, what people, financial advisors do, is to start eliciting that emotion. No? Nakakataon lang siguro na fear yung unang nabubungad. No? Pero for you guys, aside from eliciting fear in a conversation to create emotions, ano yung pwede nyong masuggest based on your studies? To start on an emotional talk, saan kami pwede manggaling?
I'll try to answer that, EJ.
Sure.
I think, and there's actually a comment on a comment in the chat box. Celebrate living dreams and aspirations, and I think that's probably what we should be looking at. What you should be looking at as insurers, and actually. I have a very good friend who's a financial advisor, and she hated it when I called her insurance agent because she is a financial planner or a financial advisor. Because for her, there is a very strong distinction between an insurance agent who pushes insurance products versus someone who advises you about money, who advises you about finances. So I think that's probably where you are looking at. Instead of being pushers of products or instead of pushing products from the insurance industry, from your companies, maybe what you should push for are aspirations. How do you fulfill a more meaningful life for yourself, for the families that you for the family, not necessarily when you leave them behind, but perhaps in the near future. How can you save up for a better future for yourself so you can celebrate with them, so you can celebrate living with them? Siguro that's probably where a shift you might want to look at.
Like
Nice.
like investing on a home or a future travel with the family, not just by yourself, diba?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
So how do you now connect it when based on your study, no, the figures that you showed, people are going towards a simpler life?
Well, siguro you will have to look at it from their perspective. They want a simpler life. They have new priorities, and maybe aligning yourself with the new priorities that they have in their lives, which is now, as we saw earlier, ano ba yung paggagamitan nila ng freed up time? It's time for myself, so a celebration of myself, time for my family or time for a family, and time for causes. So how do you align? The question goes back to you, to Gamma members and to financial planners. How do you align with these new priorities of actually celebrating life, living in the moment, and living with the family, and ensuring that everything is maximized when you live your life with your family, and at the same time contributing to society? So maybe some of the products that you can think about is parang badly put. Maybe when you insure yourself, when you pay for your insurance premium, perhaps a portion of that insurance premium pays for a financial literacy course for everyone in the country, or maybe a portion of your professional fees as financial planners go to building other leaders who can be financial leaders or financial advisors in the future. So parang yun yung mga potential ways of actually living or aligning ourselves with the new priorities of the generation COVID.
Nice. Thank you for that, Phil.
Yeah. Naalala ko yung isang mass housing provider that they will not, issue or release the loan for your housing if you do not go through their 3 or 4 weekend financial literacy program. May ganun eh. So it's double purpose, no? It's good for the family, good for the company kasi hindi nagmi-miss out sa amortization and payments, and it's nation building at the same time.
Nice.
Yes. Ayan.
All right. The Gamma members, do you have other questions? Sulitin na natin si Phil at saka si Gian.
Oo
Hindi
nga.
minsan lang to. Ngayon lang to mangyayari.
Phil, I have a question. Di ba, merong one product pero different brands. Let's say sa Gamma, iba't ibang brands ng insurance yan. Pero basically, halos pare-pareho din naman talaga yon, di ba? What would the prosumer choose, or what basis will the prosumer choose between one brand over another?
What's the tipping point?
Yeah.
I think given the data that we have, I think there are two things siguro that a prosumer will actually look at. And one of the things that they will probably look at is what Gian mentioned earlier, which is authenticity. How authentic is the financial advisor? How authentic is she really? How real is she in wanting to help the prosumer, in wanting to help better or improve the life of a prosumer? I think that's really key. That's one of the key things, because at the end of the day, we're humans. We're looking for relationships. We're looking for connections. And I think the prosumers are looking for real and meaningful relationships, not just sellers, not just pushers of products. So authenticity is something that they're going to look out for. The other thing that they're going to look out for is probably authenticity then from the company's perspective. And that authenticity will probably come in the form of how involved is the company with regard to living and breathing the issues that our concerning our lives as members of society? How involved is the company in making sure that Filipinos' lives are going to be better 5 to 10 years down the road? Or how involved are they in alleviating our problems in our planet, our problems as a society, and our problems as a nation? So I think those are the two things that they will be looking out for: personal authenticity and corporate authenticity. Kasi doon nanggagaling, doon tayo nabago eh. Nabago tayo because we reprioritized everything. We were suddenly immersed in COVID-19 and life is not as we knew it. So we reprioritized and now we are looking for new things. We're looking for deeper things. And I think that is what we're looking for: authentic connections, whether that's a person or a company.
Wow.
Thank
I
you,
have a
Phil.
question in my mind for everybody. Parang, is that authenticity taught? Can it be taught and trained, or is it something that is already in that person? So you need to look for,
Or can
you
be
need
developed.
to look and recruit for people who are authentic already, or can it be taught? That's the question.
I remember, RD, yung workshop natin
Oo nga.
nung nakaraan, no? Sayang, but it's,
Oh, yung
you know,
purpose.
dito talaga siya pumapasok, no? Yung
Exactly.
clear life mission, vision, di ba? Having a, siguro, in relation to what Phil said, no?
Right.
Kailangan din siguro professionally clear talaga yung business purpose natin. Eh, no?
Right.
Why do we do what we do? So, yeah, totally agree, Phil. Authenticity really is the name of the game.
I think that's maybe what you can see in the MDRTs, yung mga nandyan na mga achievers na makita mo, you know, the people that I know, they're authentic people. They have integrity. They are true to themselves. They have malasakit. They love what they're doing. They love the people they serve. So, yun. So my question is, yeah, how do you teach that? How do you train?
With regards to your question, RD, if
Yeah.
I may
Oh, yeah.
butt in, I think authenticity, it works two ways. Eh. It can be innate, and then you can hone it, especially as insurance agents or as leaders. When you have various claims from your clients, that's when you begin to truly imbibe your purpose as an agent, and as a leader naman, when you see your people having difficulty, especially during the past 2 years during the pandemic, so that's when you learn how to become a better leader based on experience. So it's innate in you. Kasi mahirap naman ikubli yun, di ba? Itago kung hindi innate in you. But as you go along based on experience, that's how you become better as an agent and as a leader.
Thank you. I was expecting you to answer that, Pierre. I was waiting for you to.
Thank you.
Yeah, but we have comments already, and you know, kudos to the team, to Phil, to G. You know, people are loving the session. They're saying that now is a great time to reflect on their mission, vision, and not being about number one. Wow, and the best anymore. Wow, that's a mind shift right there, right? Yeah, agree thou, hard selling not appealing anymore to the new generations. And yeah, so a lot of good and positive feedback. Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh,
All right, we have, I think, there's a question, no? Siguro this would be directed to you, Ardy and Miriam. No? How do you deal with disobedient leaders? So siguro mga unit managers na to, no? Who is self-focused during this pandemic?
How do you deal with them? You cancel them.
Hello, very timely, relevant. Ano ka, Gen Z?
Talking about authenticity, no? Masakit na ulo ko sa'yo. I will gladly let you go. And that's me being authentic.
No, but you ask, you probe, you ask what is this person going through? Why is he or she being disobedient? Why now the self? It's not it's, I mean, it's common. It happened because people are looking out for themselves. So, but usually what will work, you show love, you show malasakit, and you sit down with the person and just ask that person to make kwento.
Yeah.
Ano mangyayari sa'yo?
Yeah.
Diba?
As a parent, di ba? Lahat naman tayo siguro meron tayo mga anak, o kahit papano yung people under us parang inaalagaan natin, no? But as a parent, as a mom, when I see my son having tantrums or being emotional, it's because there's a need that's not being met. And the only way he's expressing that is he doesn't know how to communicate it. So they make a tantrum. But in order for a mother or a parent to address that, you see what is the need there. There needs to be connection. And you notice, and this is through experience, when I sit with them at eye level and offer to hug them or just ask questions, oh, how can I help you? What's happening? Or just play with them, spend time with them, that's when their emotions become more regulated. So, relating it to leaders, you have people under you, tama yung sinabi ni Ardy, na you just connect with them and ask them, what's wrong? How can I help you? It's because they have a need that's unfulfilled, and maybe you as a leader can try to, bring that out. So that you can offer genuine, sincere help. Allow them to be, parang yung number 5, yung number 2 ni Gian, di ba? Number 1, allow them to be authentic. The number 2, as a leader, you offer genuine, sincere help and provide solutions that can be sustainable. Wow. And will contribute to this cause and help build and fortify a stronger team.
Galing, oh,
Tama, di ba? All 5 G yan, sinama ko.
Memorize.
Love this, Miriam.
Valedictorian.
Notes ako notes. Yun.
All right. Okay, so I think we have no questions anymore. So with that, thank you so much to our brilliant speakers. Gian, Phil, Ardy, and Miriam. Again, maraming salamat sa inyo.